So how did I end up being where I am today? Considering some of the challenges that I faced in my early youth. I grew up in a very poor area, and it was very crime ridden, and I was one of the criminals. Very early on, it was pretty clear that that was just going to be the way that life went. I'd be doing what everybody else was doing. I'd be a criminal. I'd be concerned about the police chasing me and catching me. The more I noticed police being around, I kind of noticed other people watching me. And there was a point at which I thought everybody was out to get me. So I trained myself not to trust people. I lived in Detroit, in the Brewster projects in particular, where the color of my skin was an issue. I happened to be black, but I wasn't as dark as most of the people that lived in my neighborhood. So my welcome outside of my very immediate area was usually a fight. Everywhere that I went, I'm always watching out for people that were out to get me, which was everybody. There were some points in some tipping points in my life that actually kind of redirected me from the course that I was on in terms of just being a full-fledged adult criminal. When I went to high school, I didn't go to high school with the people that were in my neighborhood. I went to Cass Tech. For those of you who know about Cass Tech, it's a downtown high school where people would come from all over to go, and so that was a major step in terms of getting me out of the environment that I was in and the people that I was associating with. Another one of the tipping points was, it was my grandmother. My grandmother always provided a space for me to get away, a space of safety. When I was there, I felt totally protected. I didn't have to generate any energy to be protected. Grandma used to keep a double-barrel shotgun back in her closet in the bedroom, and she was a country girl, so she had she knew how to use it, and I had no qualms about going to get it. And everybody believed that she would use it. So I always just had the experience that Grandma knew what was happening with me, maybe before I did. Having access to that safe space that really got me out of my environment. And by the time I finished school, I further got out of the environment by going into the Army. When I went into the Army, that particular day they were processing people, and they needed people that met a certain criteria, to become military policemen. So they assigned me to a military police school, which was really kind of weird because mentally I was still a criminal, and I knew for sure that everybody now are going to get me for sure because they made a mistake. They didn't really know who they had brought in. Having it be natural to do things that were considered to be illegal, I was in an environment where that was unacceptable. So I began to actually just see life differently. I didn't stop thinking like a criminal, but I had a whole new perspective to look from in terms of what happens on the other side, that there all are alternatives. So as I spent more time in the military and got to know a little bit more about law enforcement, I got comfortable enough such that when I got out, I applied for a job in law enforcement. My first couple of days on the job, I worked inside of a jail, which was interesting, up until I ran into a couple people that I used to commit crimes with, and they were locked up, and I was actually embarrassed because it's like the people that we hated were the cops, and there I was in uniform. But then I looked at the conditions that they were living under, And it's like, oh, I don't think I want to be there. I'll take this. I could see an opportunity to actually impact the people that were impacting the community and people that I knew in a negative area, a negative way. Some police officers probably would have been better labeled as criminals. Police officers are generally intelligent enough to do this, same kind of abusive behavior, but do it in a way that doesn't violate the law. While, I refrain from following through on some of the thoughts that I had, there were other police officers that didn't. I quickly became intolerant of that and quickly became known as someone that you couldn't do that kind of stuff in my presence without my saying something about it. I actually, lived in and could understand and appreciate the world, the environment that criminals came from. It actually gave me an advantage as a police officer. I could get the perspective and at the same time not lose my humanity. As a police officer, you're always judging and assessing people. You literally do a threat assessment, for your own safety and well-being. So I got some additional training about not sharing with people, not revealing anything about myself in order to make sure there's no space where you can get me or have me be vulnerable in any way, shape, or form. As I got older, one of the areas where it became problematic was in relationships. I could never fully trust people because they might use whatever they know about me to get me. I became very non-communicative in terms of anything that was emotionally impactful for me. The thing that I've noticed about me is that whatever my thoughts were about what might happen were usually way worse than anything that actually did. I would torture myself with thoughts about what might happen. I found that what I was most fearful of was how a conversation in a relationship would go. How, she might react. I was actually, more afraid of a woman telling me, we got to have a conversation, we got to talk. I'm more afraid of that than having a gun pointed at me. The word that comes to mind is vulnerability, willing to let people see me just as I am. That was a long process that hadn't even begun when I was in my 20s and 30s and 40s. It actually started in my 50s. I was fortunate enough to get exposed to some people who actually recognized what was going on with me and were willing to spend some time with me and invest some effort in me to get me to a point where I could open myself up to people, which had the additional benefit of having me be in relationships that would actually work. Breaking open that vulnerability space was probably the most frightening thing that I ever did. Once I stepped through that space to be vulnerable, it was horrifying. But on the other side of that, it opened up the space to love people. It opened up the space to accept the love of other people. And it opened up a space where I could just be myself without concern about how people might judge or assess me.